Hello and welcome to a brand new Unsourced Radio. Today I'm also being joined by my good friend Mikhail. You've seen him here before. This is like the dozenth time we've done one of these, and I'm excited for this one because I know we are both huge fans, or at least huge admirers, of the Sony Marvel Spider-Man universe, which had just had, like, I guess its first big closure, its first big arc ending with the Venom trilogy cap off Venom: The Last Dance. And yeah, just you want to say hello to everyone? Feel free to.
Hello everyone, and I would like to say that I personally called the Venomverse because Spider-Man is still not in it.
Oh, well, I think Venomverse is a lot more catchy, and I do hope, we continue to see the gruesome twosome on the screen, in some fashion. But yeah, Venomverse is a lot more catchy too. But I think Marvel co-opted that, and at $10, I swear they pull up those Venomverse comics specifically to stifle Sony from calling it their stuff.
I I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, I think they've pulled off similar stunts with I think X-Men or Fantastic Four at some point
Mm,
in regard to rights issues or whatever. I
yeah.
don't know, but wouldn't surprise me.
No problem. And yes, no, I totally, I can totally see that happening. Um, but yeah, no, Venom 3, Venom the End, Venom the Last Dance. I can't believe it's it's something that happened. Back when they first announced, hey, Sony's making their own Spider-Man movies. Thought Spider-Man, we're making a Venom origin movie. It's something that like, oh, is that one gonna bomb? And there were so many people writing against the first Venom. But I remember back then, I watched it in theaters. I caught the first Venom in theaters, like opening weekend, and like, oh man, everyone was like, oh, buzzing, like, oh, is this gonna be terrible? Is this gonna be bad? Oh man, will Sony have to sell the rights back to Marvel because of how bad it's gonna bomb? And well, one great movie, great genre movie, I'll say. As a movie on its own, it's decent, it's okay. I have a lot of fun with it, but as like a throwback to like the early 2000s sort of comic book movies slash early 2000s, late 90s sci-fi alien genre horror flicks, it works gangbusters. I love it. I was in theaters like, oh man, this feels akin to like Species or something like that, which is funny because Michelle Williams was in the first Species, and she was in two of these Venom films. So like there's a Kevin Bacon 6 Degrees connection that way. And they became a staple. I think that the Venom films are definitely a staple of modern comic book movie making. As much as something like Guardians of the Galaxy will be. It's a big name. It's always been a big name. Venom's always been one of the most iconic, famous, public, face forward, Spider-Man characters. Like Spider-Man, you know Venom. Okay, it's like that. So no matter what the detractors might say, I think these movies will stand the test of time in some fashion or another. But how about you? What is like your memories or recollection of that first film when that first appeared? What was that like?
I remember going into the theater with an open mind and being really surprised at how well made it was. Because really, I think of it as just a good movie. You look at that film in terms of storytelling, in terms of the way that it's written, that it's structured, the way that it does setups and payoffs and everything. And I legitimately believe that, one major plot hole aside, it actually has a really good script. I do not agree with anybody who claims that the film is a mess because to me, I can see how well organized it is, how economical it is. I can see the craft on display. I can see how they don't over explain certain things. Sometimes I watch these big blockbuster films and I can see that there's too much exposition, there's too much prologuing. You have demystifying unnecessary prologues, or people just sit down and they just have to talk ad nauseum about what things are. And this was a movie where I felt no, it's like they cut these things down, they let the story unfold, they let you discover things along the way, and that made it a cut above for me, a cut above the majority of Marvel's output. Now, is it perfect? No, I don't think so. I think it definitely could have used an R rating. Maybe some moments were a bit rushed. And again, there was that one plot hole about Riot's symbiote. But all of that aside, it was great. And I loved its tone. I legitimately think its tone is what.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
not to step on your toes, but when people talk about like how fun and just campy and ridiculous the Venom movies are, in a complimentary way, I'm always shocked that those same people are like, oh, but the first one is like, it's kind of mediocre. And like, what are you talking about? The first one is like when that comedy horror goofiness hits the best. Like the gags work, that the
Yes.
balance between like what's kind of like meant to be more dark, what's meant to be more action, and what's meant to be like just the comedic and humorous, like those all mesh really well into their own set pieces. I love it. I gotta say, one of my favorite gags is like when Riot and Venom, they're both symbiotes, kind of detached um, from Tom Hardy and uh, what is
Riz Ahmed, I think.
yeah, Riz Ahmed. And they just start just wailing on each other anyway with preservatives like that. I laugh in the theater. Like I love that kind of stuff. I love it. I love it. Like when like okay, like we're just gonna keep going to town. Like it always gets me. So I feel like the first one I think is maybe a little underrated, even by fans of the trilogy. I think it's a little underrated, and it's like I think it's the best one. I totally agree. When you mean it's organized and it's structured, because in my sense, the word I use is that streamlined, and that's what a lot of comic movies forget nowadays. They've forgotten how to do it. Okay, I think Sony and
Mm,
some DC stuff, they still have that knack of how to streamline something, because with Marvel and the bigger MCU stuff, they don't need to streamline in their eyes, right? Because and what I mean by streamline is like, how do we turn all these years and all these concepts in comics, and how do we like funnel them into a manageable 90 to 100-minute package? How do we do that? And with MC movies, which I love I love a fair amount of MC movies. There's like, I think I can name like six that I love and I think are fantastic. But a lot of them, including the ones I love, they're like, we don't need to streamline. We don't need to like really kind of refine this down to its bare essence, because other films can pick up the slack. So we can just intimate, and we can just kind of allude to whatever. We don't have to pay it off, because we can pay it off later, or we pay it off in the after credits, or we can even pay it off in the after credits to another series in our franchise. Which, and like I think like it's messy. That's messy. Everyone calls Venom movies messy. No, that's messy. These are trying really hard to like be solid films, be solid internal narratives. And so like I think that's fantastic. Like and so that's why I really appreciate it when you see a film that knows what it wants to do, and it knows that it needs to pay things off in itself. Because a lesser movie would have been like, oh, we're gonna allude to She Venom, for a sequel, because that way we can hook them for the sequel. But no,
mhm.
they pay it off. They set up, they pay it off. It's a great moment. And it's like, if this was the only Venom movie, it would be lame to have the character and then not have the character turn to She Venom. Like, oh man,
Mhm.
it would have been so good if they made a sequel and she became She Venom. But then they'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I think you might be slightly hinting at Ant-Man here.
Well, I'm hinting at everything. I was actually thinking about War Machine for Terrence Howard.
Oh,
Like,
that
come
you
on,
know,
like it wouldn't have been that difficult. Just have him like in 1 second. Just do it for 1 second. But like, no, they couldn't. They couldn't. What were you thinking about Ant Man though?
because they kept teasing the Wasp.
Oh
Remember
yeah, that was so lame too. Because then the sequel came out and was terrible, so they wasted. And then the other sequel came out, and that was even worse. Um,
I actually I kind of liked both of them. I actually think Quantum Mania is a little underrated, but that's a
okay,
whole other thing.
I'll say that Quantum Mania is better than Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'll say that, and I'll say that people tend to dislike Quantum Mania for the worst reasons. Okay,
Mm,
um, but I'll say that. Listen, we're not talking about Quantum Mania. That we can go on all day about that. But yeah, no, that's why I really liked about the first one, which again, it feels like, what if this is the only one? What if? We gotta get the bullet points here. We gotta get their bond. We gotta get their dynamic. We gotta get at least some other symbiotes, some other um action there. We got She Venom, we have She Venom in there. Like, what can we do? And like they even squeeze in, the original origin a little bit. It takes like 5 seconds. They even do that. It's fantastic. It's fantastic stuff. Um,
No,
and so
I get they don't hold back.
they don't hold back. Like we need to squeeze as much as we can, even in the most esoteric, vague way. We need to squeeze it in, and as I think this makes it feel a little more rich, a little more full. That's my opinion. Um, but yeah, no. If you have anything else to say about the first one, I don't want to delve into too much because we've talked about that
I
at length. I think we did one of these for that one when that came out.
Yeah, I think that when enough time passes, people will start saying, "Hey, wait a second, the first Venom movie was great." I mean, I'm already kind of seeing that discourse start to shift. I think The Ringer released an article where the author calls the first Venom a deranged masterpiece and really focuses on the sequence where he gets into the lobster tank.
Yeah.
Right, and apparently that whole thing was heavily improvised just because, like, Tom Hardy saw the lobster tank and said, "Hey, wait a minute, I think I want to get in there or something," and then they had to change the whole scene around to accommodate that happening, and they had to bring in fake lobsters apparently because
So that they were like they were gelatin. I heard about this story. Yeah.
yeah, so so I'm happy to see that now it's getting
Some
some
props.
yeah, it's getting recognition.
Mm.
I hate its Rotten Tomato score. I'm just like, I don't get what people don't like about it. But on the other hand, I still suspect that, that tone that it goes for, that's a tone that puts a lot of people off.
Right.
Because, yeah, like audiences in general don't like horror and comedy in the same movie. They get confused.
Oh.
It's like, wait, are they trying to make us laugh, or are we supposed to be kind of, is it trying to scare us or whatever? You try both of those things and it's tricky. It's tricky to pull off,
It's
but
a tricky balance, yeah. Especially not only that, but like in a superhero movie too, you need to be epic. You can be epic. Oh man, we need all this stuff in it. I feel like the more downscale version of this also people pull off. Like it's very downscale, which works for it. It's more of a character piece, not to sound too artsy fartsy, but it's more of a character piece.
yeah, and it's economical. I really appreciate just how economical it is.
100%, 100%. Um, but yeah, before we move on, and perfect segue into Carnage. It is amazing how like functional this movie is, given that like I 100% believe Tom Hardy when he says this. Like, there's like an hour missing of footage, of like connective tissue he was talking about. Like, oh, that just like 20 minutes of lead scenes, because you can tell like it's quick, but I think the quickness helps it a lot. I feel like if it took a little bit more time, and I don't, maybe it would be great. Maybe it would be great with the connective issue. I honestly believe it would be, because I do trust the team behind it. Ruben Fleischer, director, Kelly Marcello was writing this one as well. They're fantastic. Ruben Fleischer does great work. I'm a defender of Zombieland 2, only because I don't hold the first one in that high regard. Okay, second one was fine. Everyone, second Zombieland was fine. Everyone just loves the first one too much, I think. But anyway, perfect, a great team. So I have no doubt that whatever was left on the cutting room floor would have been good. But I feel like the frantic, chaotic, kinetic nature of the first film, I think, really helped sell it. Maybe if it had been longer, maybe it wouldn't have done it. Maybe it would take a little more time to get used to. But like you're kind of on the ball. You're rolling with it. Everything's happening. It's fun. I love it. But compared to the sequel, where I think they tried to, like, oh man, we could make something really bare bones, is what they took. I say streamlined. I think Sony took the wrong lesson. Like, we can make something bare bones, because you get the Carnage, which for some reason is a fan favorite. I'll never understand how that's the fan's favorite.
I
Um,
don't either.
um, they're like, oh man, it is frantic. It is hectic. I don't. Every scene, it just has no momentum. You go off on Carnage. You know a lot more about what doesn't work about it. You go off. I'll let you.
Yeah, Carnage is kind of a mess to me, not in terms of plot or anything, but just in terms of the storytelling, because that film is chopped down to the bone. I mean, even the bone is chopped down even further to, I don't know, the joints or whatever, the marrow, or whatnot. I watched that movie and I cannot be immersed in it. And this might be just me because I am trained to see how films are edited. And whenever I try to watch Carnage, I am constantly distracted. I can see the cuts. There is no breathing room. There is like missing tissue in between shots of the same scene. You know, there are missing bits of obvious exposition that is supposed to be delivered in one scene and is referenced then in maybe the very next scene, but it's just not there. Somebody says, "Okay, this person said that about Venom, blah blah blah," but I'm like, "No, wait a minute. We just saw that scene. That did not happen. What are you talking about?" It's stuff like that that makes it impossible for me to just immerse myself in a film, to let the illusion overtake me and just enjoy what's happening. And I can't do it with this movie. I found it so hard to get through. It was just, I don't know. I can see the potential of it, but everything that I've read um, about it, and it's making, and the creators have been quite hush hush about it. It's that this film had to be cut down, had to be shredded, butchered because of budget. I am like 90% certain that that was the cause because its production was interrupted by COVID. And then I believe Sony did not want to give them extra money that they would need to match the scope that they were going for. Uh, with all of the COVID related inflation, because things start to cost more under COVID, and also production gets distended and post production gets distended. And then it's like, well, what can we cut to make the movie fit the budget? Well, we have a lot of VFX shots. We have more VFX shots than in the first movie. And I guess we have to cut a bunch of VFX shots. Can we cut like 300, 500 VFX shots? Well, okay, why did we cut some of those shots from almost every single scene or whatever? And that way the film is shortened down to, what was it, like 90 minutes or something? I mean, by my calculations, this film should be like 20 to 25 minutes longer. And I can I imagine that in a few years, Andy Serkis and everyone else involved will start, letting us understand, yeah, this happened behind the scenes. We weren't able to do that, blah blah blah. Anyway, I like the villain. I like Woody Harrelson's performance. I
Mhm.
like some of the gags they have.
100%.
Yeah, but as a whole, that film for me just does not work.
No, we talked about this before we start recording. I still enjoy it, but it is very stop and start. I feel like every scene I think works, but the connective tissue is so apparently not there. Is like it feels almost nonsensical to me. I can see what it's trying to do, like, but what are we doing? Um, and you can tell, like, I can definitely believe that that had a lot more bigger plans. Can you tell when they were doing interviews before it became production, before I started filming, like we really want to dig into Carnage, we really want to dig into his character, and like I think the only deleted scene they ever released was like of the Carnage symbiote kind of explaining his motivation and his plan, and like one, why would you cut that? It's like 15 seconds, and when you say that they were trying to cut VFX shots, I can definitely believe that because I think the only other deleted scene they ever released was like at the end when with a little bit more Eddie and Venom banter. And again, these are not things that would have really like cutting them doesn't affect the scene, but why would you cut them when they add more flavor to the scene? And they're just like 5-10 seconds. So I guess if they were trying to cut, around anything that would cost more money to like render or to develop or animate, yeah, no, I believe you all the way with that because there's like that's the only way that cutting those makes sense. We're like, oh, we got to shave off seconds here and there, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I still enjoy it, and it has one of my favorite things. I don't think you see a lot of it anymore. I really don't. Where you where in the prologue with with
Shriek and
Shriek,
Carnage.
Shriek and Carnage, right? Um, they have like they have like actors playing the younger versions, and like that's a cottage industry you don't see anymore in blockbuster movies anymore. Like I was watching Ang Hulk, like the other day, and like oh you have that prologue too. Like oh here's a younger version of those actors, like there is a whole swath of Hollywood, like extras that have no longer have any business anymore. They don't have no longer anywhere to go to because Hollywood refuses to cast young people to play the young versions of actors nowadays. They
I
refuse to.
Well, I think that sometimes depends on the age gap because if you have them as children, for example, then there's no way I think the adults can play the child versions of those characters. So,
Oh, with that
uh,
attitude.
yeah, but maybe, but no, but I kind of get that because nowadays you have de-aging technology and stuff like that. I mean, I remember, wasn't it in one of the later Avengers films that they did a de-aged Robert Downey Jr. like to do a flashback that was a
That,
hologram or
that
whatever?
was Spider-Man. No, Far From Home.
Oh, that was in Spider-Man. Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty bad, I have to say.
It was, and so like I really enjoyed that. Like it just shows. I don't know. Like, it gives these things a little more color to them.
Hmm.
A little more personality, and I enjoyed it. People were like, "Oh man, it's so weird that they dubbed them," and I gotta admit that was a little weird. But like,
Oh, they
I
were
don't know.
dubbed?
Yeah, they were dubbed. Naomi Campbell and or Naomi Campbell, who played Shriek.
Oh, I don't remember.
I think it's Naomi Harris, but I want yeah, Naomi Harris. Naomi Harris. Yeah, Naomi Harris and Woody Harrelson. They dubbed the young voice actors, and everyone made fun of it. Like, no, it adds personality. I love it. These movies have such weird, janky personality. Even some might be better than the others, but yeah, I love them. They have a charm, and I think that despite everything, Venom 2 still has that charm. I still had a good time with it.
I mean, it has charm.
Mm.
I can see its potential. I can see how it could have been great. I think that's also one of my issues with it is that I can see how it could be great if the people who made it were given the runtime and the money to actually make it great.
Mhm.
And if anything, I wish it also even in this version I just wish they had explained some things a bit better. I never quite understood, wait, how does symbiote reproduction actually work? I
Oh
mean,
man, yeah, that don't worry, you don't get any answers in the next one. 'Cause
no, no, I know that they weirdly just never even raised the subject. I mean, I was expecting the first scene that Kalidas actually has with his symbiote. I was expecting him to ask, "Wait, where did you come from? How did you get here?" I mean, none of that ever comes up, And then even it is weird how, honestly, I think they just on a story level. I think it's weird that they keep Venom and Carnage apart all the way until Act 3. I mean, those two have no time to
exactly.
interact,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah, and that's the problem. Some, I think all three of them were like they have to be more prudent, so they really do, drag things a little bit out, a little more out than it should be. And yeah, no, definitely. Um, but yeah, I think it made me really excited for a third one. Like I know that it had softer numbers than the first, okay, but I'm like everyone was like, oh man, I was it was a terrifying time. Okay, I'm gonna say I was terrified because after the first after the post credit scene where he shifts it to the MCU, I'm like, no, they're gonna ruin it. No, and then like you have all these weird anti Venom detractors. I don't want to say haters because people can dislike the movies. I'm not gonna say everyone has to like these, but there is a segment of Spider-Man and Marvel fans, where that are just so fervent and so feral about it. Like it's their entire personality. You know, where they were like, yes, okay, finally these movies will get good and have purpose. Like, okay, one, that's a weird way to think about film. Okay, and two, like it felt so deflating because like you have these two movies that they deserve to be like on their own. Now just it kind of felt to me like, oh, now they're kind of kowtowing to Spider-Man and whatever the MCU is doing. They got to. It felt like they had conceded some ground. That they shouldn't have, because like I don't care about like, oh, a third Venom being a Spider-Man crossover. I don't care about that. I want to see Venom 3 follow up and be a Venom 3. But so it felt weird to be like the odd man out in that when it came to like the most vocal Spider-Man fans. And then of course No Way Home came out and it's like, oop. And so the reverse, like, yes, yes, God damn it. And then of course everyone went crazy, like, oh man, they once again, I guess Venom Let There Be Carnage was worthless. Like, what, it's just a weird way to interact with films. You don't like the films, okay, whatever. But like, if you're like, it's so weird to be like, it's like it's dependent on whether or not they interact with Tom Holland, that it makes a difference of if they're good or not. Like if the moment that there's actual crossover, people like, I think that will be the difference. I'll be like, oh man, you know what? This is so epic. Thankfully, the Venom movies were like so good that this is an epic crossover moment. That's the kind of mentality some of these people have. Like it only matters that you know that happened, that decides whether or not these movies are good or not to them.
I believe that this is linked to the discourse of Venom being a Spider-Man character,
Hmm.
because all throughout, I find that a lot of critics, they look down upon the Sony Marvel movies just because they are making movies about Spider-Man characters without Spider-Man, right? Like there's
Hmm.
this whole thing about how dare they try to build movies around the supporting cast, around the villains. This is so stupid, blah blah blah. Venom is a Spider-Man villain. He should premiere in a Spider-Man movie first or something. He should be a Spider-Man villain.
Hmm.
And for me, that's a very strange approach to these films in general. I'm
Hmm.
just thinking, well, wait a minute, didn't these characters already have a bunch of didn't they already have their own comic book lines or whatever? Didn't they anchor certain series or whatever? And what's the problem,
Hmm.
really? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, so I'm just like, well, I don't understand why it only matters if it's tied to Spider-Man, because the characters have stood alone by themselves. They can anchor. They've done that for a number of years now. They can anchor their own franchises. You don't need them to necessarily be tied to Spider-Man just because that's what the source was in a way. And when that post-credit scene happened, I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. It helps Sony establish certain things finally, because I remember there was a lot of debate all the way, like even before Venom came out, as to whether or not Venom and Spider-Man were actually in the same universe, and is the Sonyverse, is the Venomverse part of the MCU or not, or what's the connection there? And the way that the Sony people were talking about it in interviews is that well, to me it was kind of obvious. To me it was like, okay, they will eventually interact with Holland's character. They are their own thing. They're not legally tied to. They're kind of indirectly tied to the MCU through Tom Holland. Like they can interact with. They will eventually interact with him, but they can't really, interact with that larger stuff because that's all Marvel and rights issues and whatever. Like to me, it was kind of like, okay, I get that. It's like the whole thing with how you have sometimes properties that are tangentially linked, but there can't always be like a direct I don't know, like a direct point of connection. And I think finally with this film, Sony decided, okay, now we're going to establish it as a completely separate parallel universe or whatever. Um, and I think what happened all there also was that they wanted to bring Venom into the MCU just because at one point or another he was going to play a role in No Way Home. That whole film kept undergoing changes all throughout production. They kept writing it as they were shooting it. And at one point, they wanted Venom in there in the climax, I think, and then eventually they decided to strip him out, right? So that's why we ultimately ended up with him just making one more appearance, and that was in the post-credits scene. So ultimately, I think it ended up being a benefit to the Venom movies because we got a great joke in there, and the door is open for maybe some kind of for that piece that he leaves behind to become another thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like everyone was like, "Oh, okay, so perfect segue into Last Dance," because now we have again. I was like so excited, like finally we're gonna get something that is of this series that can stand alongside this series, and
Yeah.
I was excited, and I really appreciated that they took the time to, kind of manage that post-credit scene into this. And I say manage because like it doesn't negate it. You're like, oh man, I can't believe they reshot things and they retcon things and like it's just I feel like you kind of have to make this stand more on its own. All the changes people have said, oh, it's for legal reasons because they can't use too much MCU footage or reference too much MCU stuff. Um, I feel like all the changes that happen here, they're subtle enough to like, okay, we get the gist, but it's all centered more around like the Venom side of things. Like the dialogue slightly shifted and edited a little bit differently, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like okay, it's enough so that like how they got back, but it it it, it prioritizes the focus to Eddie and Venom and like the story that they were undergoing. And
Of
so I really like that. And that is the last piece of enjoyment I had for 40 minutes.
I want to say that I am really, really curious as to whether or not they used alternate takes of that scene when it was originally shot. Because I think, well, so somebody managed to put up the Venom 3 version of that scene on YouTube, right? And I did a side by side comparison. And it's interesting because sometimes it really seems to me that they might have used just alternate takes rather than done a full blown reshoot. Or maybe they did reshoot parts of it, but maybe they used alternate, maybe it was interspersed with alternate takes from the scene when it was shot initially. And it's interesting, like, Eddie seems a lot more inebriated in the Venom 3 version of the scene. And it's interesting how there's also no reference to Spider-Man there at all, even though that's the initial point of him going to New York. I mean, they still end up going to New York, right? But
Mhm.
the motivation for that is completely different.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoyed that because it's again it refocuses things, and
Oh, yeah.
I get 100%. I can 100% agree that maybe they'd used restock footage because I don't know if they would have enough money because it had to like reshoot then redress the set. Okay, to look what it like it did when they shot No Way Home, the No Way Home sequence. Okay, I can 100% believe that. I really can.
Yeah, but
Um,
one more thing I will say is that I think it's fascinating how Venom's whole attitude toward the pull of the multiverse or whatever, it's completely different. In No Way Home, he is disappointed. He's like, "No, no, no, we just got here." But then in Venom 3, that line of dialogue is missing, and instead, the moment he comes back, says, "Oh God, I'm so done with the multiverse shit."
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I know that got like one of the bigger laughs in the theater because I like it. It like that takes a stand. Like I don't like. I know for as many people who are like, oh, no, I don't want Spider-Man 4 to be Venom crossover. You heard a lot of that before this came out. I didn't. Yeah, that's how I felt. I don't want this to be multiverse stuff either. I want this to be its own story, and so that I feel like yes, it's felt like take that, underdog, a little bit. It's hard to say like, oh, Sony's the underdog, but even if Sony isn't the underdog, the Venom movies are. They're the underdogs, so I like hell yeah, represent. Um, so um, that said, I'm in the theater. I'm really primed through this. I rewatched the first two. I'm like I'm primed. Like I'm in for this. Um, immediately I could tell, oh man, people who liked Let There Be Carnage are gonna like this a lot more than I do. Um,
Mm.
like off the bat, the first gag, it loses me. The where he's making the vodka shot or the tequila shot, and it's the tequila song is playing, and he's like coming to it, like, no man, oh man, what are we doing here? This is oh god, man. What I hate most about Venom 2 that wasn't a problem with the first Venom, and actually isn't a problem with this Venom after like the halfway point. Is like the humor becomes so forced. It's like we gotta
Mm.
be jokey here. Like it's like the script says now Tom Hardy does something funny. You know, something like that. And that whole sequence is rife with it, and it begins one of the movie's weirdest things, where like the first half of the movie is so oddly music focused in awkward ways. Like
Yeah.
like like did they not have enough for a proper score? You know, you gotta feel like we gotta fill up this dead air with music. That's how it feels like, and so that's how that felt like, and fine, whatever. Burping pains. Got to get the shakes out. And I enjoyed the sequence where he kills the dog fighter. I loved all of that, but again, why is that music playing? Like, why? Like he had like this big kind of rock and roll song, and it's fine. Like if you said the regular score, that scene would work like 3 times better because that just gets in the way of like them having like this really cool moment. Because then it's like it's not Venom and Eddie having a cool moment. It's like, oh man, now it's a cool moment because this cool song is playing. It kind of refocuses things. It like takes you out of it.
I uh I can definitely see what you're talking about. It's just the music becomes kind of distracting at a certain point. And I feel that, well, the tonal balance is off. I think a lot of the first film's comedy was better modulated. It came in at the right points. And by the time we get to the third one, I feel there is not enough horror anymore. It feels way more explicitly comedic, but you don't get the horror comedy. Like, you don't get the horror part of the horror comedy, which is kind of sad. I mean, for me, that whole sequence was also, it was meant to be fun. It was meant to be like a fun reintroduction to Venom. This is like Venom, the lethal protector, who chops people's heads off, who chomps off the heads of bad guys and stuff like that. And it was fun. It was fun, and but also at the same time, I could see some of the Carnage editing problems seeping in just there already, because everything in that opening sequence, and honestly the first 20-30 minutes, it really moves faster than it should, for me anyway. It just feels like, okay, again, they're cutting around certain things, they are missing some things, and I wish that those scenes just had more breathing room. Like, even that opening sequence, I feel could have used more breathing room.
Oh yeah, 100%. It feels like, oh, he goes in the bar and then he goes and fights this stuff and then he keeps walking. It feels like what like it's too much and yet too little. It's a lot of set pieces, but it's like devoid of like real character meat, which is weird because it's like that's what these films are about. And especially since like the first half of this film is just kind of Tom Hardy with himself, so you think that there would be a little bit more to chew on, and it does feel a little hollow in places. But I totally forgot. We totally passed this over. The first the first scene I mentioned, I thought it was like, oh, we talked about the No Way Home thing, but no. The very first scene before the credits even start, it's a blank
Oh,
screen.
right, right.
Yeah, it's it's our first introduction to Null, and you know what? I know what I gotta say. I know people are like, Null is so recent. Why are they using him? Why not? Why not? You know, why not use him? You know, he's a big part of like the whole Venom stuff now. It's an iconic part. Like I have like little cousins who got into like the video games and some of the cartoons and the action figures. They know Null. They think Null is a big deal. So what? Like maybe he is. Maybe Null will stand the test of time. Who knows? Maybe the King of Black story will stand the test of time. It's already been hinted at and adapted and referenced so many times before already. um, that like the younger generation, it's imprinted on them. You better get used to it. And I feel like that. I feel like it's an odd way to start the movie because it kind of sets up something a little more epic, a little more rumination. Like, oh man, something's happened. Go find it. Find it. He just sends out like 10 a dozen of his xenophages into like portals and like find Venom and then like whatever. And then it's just tequila and dogfighting and like what and action punk music and like the again you were saying the tonal balance is not there. And then there's just not. Um let's see.
If I could say something about the null sequence,
Yeah.
it's that I kind of wish that the movie did not open with it because it's
It,
like,
it
well,
it
who's he
saps
even
that
like who is he even talking to? You
exactly.
know, like it feels like one of those scenes that they make just for the audience. You know,
Like
a pro
you're here, you expect it.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, like because look, a lot of unfortunately, like 9 out of 10 sci-fi or fantasy movies, they have to open with a prologue where something that's not really connected to the story, but
It's
something,
set
but
up.
it's like, yeah, it's like setup, it's like foreshadowing, and it's giving people a lot of information beforehand. And I'm just like, well, you guys could have introduced him maybe in a vision or flashback or whatever somewhere in the middle of the film very easily. Like there was no real functional need for this sequence, and it kind of gives a bunch of things away. But also, it's just like it feels, very by the numbers in a way, like not really, almost like, okay, the creators of the movie are okay, yeah, it's a necessary evil. Let's just get through it and move on to the stuff that we actually want to do,
100%. 100%. Um so uh yeah, we got that. Um and this is where the movie starts to lose me even further where again it's just I don't know. I can it's you can tell this is okay in retrospect. I can tell from here. You can tell after the first sequence with the xenophage where they find the airplane, and Eddie escapes from it onto the floor with Venom, and Venom's like, "Oh man, I can't transform into my full Venom self because it'll find me." I was myself.
because we need to save on money.
Money, exactly. Like this is an excuse. This is an excuse to um just not use VFX. And that's what like and I felt like, oh man, like I understood it. I understood it, but I also like this is gonna be a compromise. Okay. And I was like wondering for like the next like 35 minutes, I'm like, how much of a compromise is gonna be? Because right now I'm thinking like I'm thinking the worst case scenario. I'm prepared for the worst case scenario. Like this is gonna be a compromise. Like they got less money, they got less resources. Like what is even going to be in this film? Like how far did this go? Was this just like something that they just had to like by obligation squeeze out and Kelly Marcel and Tom Hardy are just doing the best they can to catch whatever pieces they have left. That's my feeling. So I think that color maybe if I rewatch it when it comes out like on VOD or something, I'm not gonna watch the camera. I won't disrespect this movie like that. But even when I rewatch it, now knowing what this is building up to, what the movie was prioritizing, that will that'll color my things, my perception differently. I'll have a different perspective because after that point, I'm like, oh man, like every scene I was like, this scene is only happening in this way because they don't have enough money. And I think maybe that made me a little more negative towards this movie than some other people. But oh, God, I hate that line because like, what are we even doing here? You know, what
Yeah,
are we
I
doing here?
completely understand that because, well, I could already tell there was some budget saving, even in that sequence where the Xenophage first attacks, right? Because the way the plane sequence was cut together, it was clear that there were shots missing in between parts of that scene. There were, you see one part of the scene, and then in the next, and then it cuts, and then it feels like there is no continuity, like something has been skipped over, like almost like a jump cut or something. So I could already see that, okay, they are again having a budget problem, and once again, and the Carnage issue is the Carnage problem is rearing its head once again. And I was hoping the rest of the movie would not be like that. And thankfully, eventually, they stopped doing that and they stopped skipping over the connective tissue. But yeah, that was also for me a point where I was getting concerned with how well things were going to turn out. Now, I will uh, bring up one more point. Does it actually make sense that Venom could do that thing with the plane? Because Venom's supposed to be weak against sound, right? I mean, isn't the jet engine making a lot of noise or something?
Maybe if because maybe if it was only just his hands, you know,
Hmm.
and then like he was too focused on the danger to notice it when he was in full body mode. All right,
I'm
that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. Um,
okay.
yeah. All right. So, now I don't know if I don't know if the scene happens right here or not. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. It's the Clover Society of the Venom films. The Imperium Project at Area 55 or 57. I don't know which one it was. I think it's 55. Um, because like, what is this all about? Where are they coming from? Like, well, this is something much like other things in this film that only started working for me as the movie went on. Because when it's this first introduced, I'm like, oh, cornball, but in a bad way. Like this is corny in a bad way. Like, oh, there's a super secret Area 51, and it's like a really generic super science laboratory. It's like this is a little bit too much in that third film. It's a little bit too much to do all at once, and it's so cornball because you have Jill Temple and she's wearing like a ET T-shirt or something, or like a Space Camp T-shirt, and she's like, "Oh man, we're doing super science with symbiotes," and like, yeah, like, "Oh, I'm a general, and I don't like the aliens." That kind of like, whoa, man, this feels like Species Two, this felt like the other half of like those old 2000s era like generic sci-fi films, where it's like in species movies. I keep bringing back species movies, okay, because I think that they're the closest relative to this franchise. um where like those have like this super secret laboratory where they study the alien parasites that they grow into these the beautiful women in the species movies. um, what a film franchise. I should rewatch them. uh, um, what a premise. Anyway, and I felt like akin to that, where like that is of that tone. And so I appreciate it a little bit on that way. And as we went on, I started really enjoying the Secret Science Laboratory stuff, but more than not, because I think that my favorite character in this film is Toxin, or Toxin Two. Let's call him Toxin Two. Um, I love them. As we went on, I like Toxin is so cool. He doesn't get to do anything. People are like, oh, Toxin doesn't do anything, but he has such a fantastic presence, both
Hmm.
as Pat Milligan and as the fully formed symbiote. Like he's so calm and eerie and off-putting, and obviously kind of wise and sage-like. Like throughout, whenever we get to a scene where the Imperium Project, they call it, talks to him, Juno Temple talks to him. It's like a little off-putting, a little unnerving, and I loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it a
there
lot.
there was something interesting in the tone of those scenes. They kind of seem to be going for a different feel than the rest of the movie. It felt kind of eerie or something, or
Apocalyptic.
yeah, something like that. I mean, I was really curious about those scenes actually, because I remember even afterwards they showed how the characters seem to be reacting to what he's told them. It's like the camera just sort of stayed with both Temple and Clark Bach. I think there was even a moment there with Bach's character where she just seems so unnerved
That they feel
by.
it's fright. I think she sells those scenes too. Like she does a really good job in those scenes where she feels like horrified in like a subtle way, like in turn, like her eyes are very expressive. It feels like it feels genuinely a little bit dangerous, you know? Like you don't especially the way Toxin reacts and looks and moves around. He's got this fantastic design where he's got like snake tail tendrils. Like it's a snake kind of body, but he's like got tentacles. It's fantastic. Um, and he just looks so weird I think his design really unnerved me. Where he's just kind of sniffing around the room. He's like bobbing and slowly. He's like moving around. He's like sniffing and shit. It's fantastic. He's like almost Hannibal Lecter-y, you know?
Kind of. I mean, but on the other hand, he doesn't seem to be evil,
No,
right?
no, no. That's he's serene. He's serene. It's awkward in a good way. Like, gives you chills a little bit. How serene he is. How calm he is.
Yeah, but is he really Toxin though? I mean, they make a
No,
point of
I
saying, yeah, like his original symbiote left him for some reason, right?
yeah
And then they have to inject a new green one
yeah.
into him, I guess, to save his life, which honestly makes me wonder, wait, how much time has passed? I really kept getting confused by the timeline here because it's like, wait, they've only been together 1 year, but how long has it been since Carnage? Wait, he's still wounded after the events of has it been a few days or something?
It's been a
What's
week.
going
Yeah, exactly. But also this brings up my next point as to novels definitely like after the first draft had been written, in my opinion. I think that I feel like there was definitely maybe trying to build up between Toxin versus Venom at some point because um they mentioned, oh, we gotta save his life by injecting with this toxin or this other symbiote, right? Um, does it wouldn't don't the rules mean that that should have created a codex?
I okay, so I did not get the codex thing at all, honestly. I was like, wait, how did the codex form? So well, somebody has to die, then get resurrect. But what does that have to do
It's
with
like
Null's law?
exactly okay. So um,
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin, exactly. The codex works differently in the comics, but it's also still really nonsensical. Um, and as for why it can open Noah's lock, who cares? That doesn't matter. It just can. It just can. Um, but the way that they mention the codex, I think is my favorite joke in the movie. Um, because like thank God we never died and like get stabbed through the chest and like it's fantastic because like you know what Venom is some bullshit. He can it, Eddie can get I don't think I think at that point what sells a joke is that Eddie really has taken for granted how immortal he is when he has Venom. Like he can get he'll fall from a skyscraper. He'll get shot. He'll break bones. But he just gives Venom can just fix it like that. And I think it shows like a little bit of hubris. Like he just has not realized how important that dynamic is for his continued safety. How much Venom actually does for him, and so that's great. He's like so unaware, so unself aware. And fantastic. I love it. But yeah, no, like, yeah, it feels like they didn't really plan that out when they mentioned like multiple times. Oh man, Toxin saved Pat Milligan's life, or Toxin 2, or whatever. Uh, and so, or in the ending, and when we get to the final act, you see like one of the people who gets bonded to those symbiote Power Rangers, right? He's like been stabbed too. He's dying too, and that symbiote saved his life.
Yup.
Wouldn't that create Codex too? What is going? What are the rules? What are
I,
the
I
rules?
I honestly think that a lot of symbiote rules established by the first movie have been tossed out the window here because wasn't there a whole thing about how well symbiotes need to be compatible with the people that they bond with if with some of them they can't bond with them fully or they can try but then it's going
I
to kill the host pretty
Well, to
quickly
be
or
fair,
whatever.
you don't see him long enough to know if they would have destroyed the hosts. Okay.
Uh,
You
okay,
know,
I get okay. I'll accept that, but still, it felt like the things were kind of loose now. You know what I'm saying?
100%, 100% loose, 100% loose. Like they know what they wanted to put on screen and they went for it. That's the rule. Um, but yeah, I loved everything with Toxin. It felt just really really disturbing in a good way. Like that's you're saying that this movie was missing the horror element. I think that Toxin more than made up for it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I think Yeah, I'll agree with that. I feel like I kind of wish there was more there. I keep wondering, was Stephen Graham only on set for like 2 or
A
3
day,
days or something?
maybe
Yeah.
even a day, maybe even a day.
Yeah.
Because for half his screen time, he's toxin. Okay, you wouldn't need to be there.
Yeah. So maybe, and I suspect that the reason they never call him Toxin and the reason they change his symbiote is simply because, okay, they want to save Toxin, but they want Toxin, but they couldn't do him justice within the context of this movie, maybe because of scheduling issues. So they decided, okay, we'll have him be another symbiote and we'll save the actual Toxin for later or whatever.
And you know what? Maybe that would work. And later on, if they want to bring Null back, because they mentioned that, and people said, well, but that wouldn't really be toxin because Pat's dead. But they do set up that, symbiotes, they keep a copy of the person, and that's what creates the codex. So maybe the toxin symbiote maybe incidentally recreates Pat somehow, and it creates a new codex.
Oh wait,
That,
that's what the codex does? It creates a copy of
yeah, yeah.
the
So basically, Eddie, Venom just kind of rebooted him from a saved copy. He died. That's what they mentioned. He died, and symbiotes they carry a copy of the host after they bonded with them.
You know, that's very interesting because that would make current day Eddie Brock a clone, right?
Exactly. It felt very cyberpunk. Have you played cyberpunk?
I tried. I
Do you mind
actually well,
spoilers?
no, go ahead.
One of the endings of the game is you can do the same thing to V, the main character. Because basically, the main character. I keep saying he, but the canon version of the character is a woman. The whole inciting incident is that they get basically a technological virus in their brain, like technological cancer that's eating away at them, in the form of Keanu Reeves' character. And so the only way to really um, cure V, is to kill him and then replace the technological cancer of Keanu Reeves with a technological cancer of themselves. Okay, they kill him and then like they just implant the same kind of virus that the character was dying from, but in this time the technological cancer, is their own psyche that saved onto a disk or saved onto the cloud, reinserted into their brain. Uh, so that they cure him, but like the person is dead. So far, the person that they were technically died, and it's just a saved copy in their body. So I thought that was pretty cool. But they don't really delve into it. But like maybe a sequel would. But I think that kind of adds maybe a little bit. If you want to like give it this movie more depth, if you want to give it that courtesy, even though Venom is dead, the fact that spoilers, Venom dies. Uh, but even though Venom is dead, the version that Eddie is at the end would not be possible without Venom in a quite literal way.
Wow, I completely missed that. But also I feel part of the problem is that they never really wrestle with what
Anything.
that means. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just like, wait a minute. If you think about it, that's a pretty big deal. I wish they had scenes where he like maybe Brock has an existential crisis or something. He's like, wait, well, what does this mean? I'm not really me anymore. Like, I am I your son? Am I your whatever? What? Holy crap! Like this would be like a whole. This would in another version of the script. I can imagine this being an earth-shattering revelation for him that makes him kind of spiral at least for a while. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yes, no, 100%. Um, but yeah, so that's what happened. Maybe they could bring Toxin back that way. But moving ahead, um, so I learned this just recently. Apparently, like the voice on the other end of the radio, the lead, the hidden backer behind the Imperium project is Reed Scott in a voice-only cameo. He played Dr. Dan in the first two, and I think it'd be so funny if like they ever made like a follow-up to this, and that's up in the air, but hopefully they do someday. Um, if Dr. Dan turned out to be like the secret evil mastermind behind everything, and he was like, "Oh man, I gotta keep track of Eddie," and that's he's deep cover, that would explain so much, you know. But no, that was cool. I really do miss. I think one of the things that makes the first half of this feel so empty is that usually he would have more to bounce off of, and they obviously they couldn't either reschedule, for budget reasons, or they couldn't cast them for budget reasons, Reed Scott and Michelle Williams, their presence is really sorely missed, honestly. Um, and I could easily imagine them like in Vegas, or maybe getting a shotgun wedding or something, or maybe they have their own kind of thing. Maybe they're the ones with the camper tramper family, um, and maybe they get stuck with them, and then Eddie comes along later or something. They just miss each other, something like that. I could easily see something like that happening. But it's a shame. It's a shame. There's rumors. I would say rumors because I only saw like an unverified source about this, that at least Dr. Dan filmed a short cameo scene, but I don't think that's been confirmed or not. But if it ever does, I do want to see that. Sony better not, skimp out on deleted scenes for this one. I want to see everything.
That's interesting. I mean, I miss those characters, but I can kind of understand that they would not be all that appropriate for what this film is doing. And at the same time, I've read an interview with Kelly Marcel where she talks about how the central sort of romantic relationship shifted over time. It shifted from the first movie because in the first movie it was very much Eddie Brock and Michelle Williams' character, right? And then people realized that no, wait a second, he has a whole thing with Venom. That should be the central sort of romantic relationship there, or not romantic, but kind of sort of romantic, right? So they started to lean into that, and
No, yeah, I'm not saying for like romantic, but I do like their dynamic. I think that they're good supporting characters for him to bounce off of. And this is for the first half of the film. Tom Hardy, like there's not enough shtick there for him to really be entertaining. So it just
mm.
feels like walking and bickering, and like I'm just thinking into my seat in the theater, like, oh my god, this is gonna be terrible, and I'm gonna eat so much shit
but
online.
but also enjoying life, right? Like when
Yeah,
they
yeah.
parachute, when Venom turns into a parachute and they're just seeing the sunrise or whatever. He's
Mhm.
like, "Look at that, Eddie! Isn't that beautiful? Isn't this world amazing or something?" No, but really, I think moments like that really help the film. You know?
No, no, definitely. Um, So let's talk about the camper family. So that's the next big thing that happens. The camper family, right? Resequence, which is in one of the most clever and funny stunt castings I've ever fucking seen. Because that could have been anyone. That's not a role that needed to be played by Reese Funds. You know, it
What if he
didn't.
was secretly Dr. Kurt Connors and
Exactly.
it's in
They
that
knew
Spider Wars all the
they
time?
knew the second that they cast him. They knew the very second they cast him, that would be the news cycle every time a trailer came out. And you know what? Bravo, bravo. Okay, amazing gambit. Okay, um, because it could have been played by anyone. It could have been played by anyone. It could have been played by Peter Stormare. It could have been played by whoever. Um, uh, and I this is just like the Imperium Project. This is something that I liked every new scene they popped up. The very first scene when they're like just traveling, and then like the bits of the alien goop fall behind their caravan and everything like that. Um, like, oh man, this is getting rough. This is getting rough, but then they just get weirder and weirder and weirder until they're like middle-aged Goonies with two kids, like when they get to like for Air 51 and they're like, man, what a legacy. And they're like, whoa, let's sneak into this military base. Like, what are you doing? Like, you've gone from like just hippies, like just over the top, like Steven Spielbergian weirdos just looking for an adventure. It's ridiculous, and I loved it. Like they get so over the top, in just insane ways. Like every new line that any of the characters in that family says is is just more unhinged and just desperate. I loved it.
I wasn't sure what to make of them uh, at the time when they were first introduced. I was wondering, wait, why is this family here? What is the point? And they grew on me because, yeah, like you said, they definitely get weirder at a certain point. I'm just like, well, these parents are very irresponsible because this is just this is just child endangerment right there.
Mhm.
But also, I think that once Eddie actually crosses paths with them, you can kind of see, or at least for me, the point was he gets to see what he's missing out on. He gets to see, okay, this is what life could have been. Like they kind
Mhm.
of evoke, I think, Michelle Williams' character in that sequence without
Because
ever even
he
mentioning her
sees
by name.
like a wedding. He sees like a wedding party on the street in Vegas. Yeah, as
Yeah.
well.
So yeah, and he sees the kids, right? And he's like, and I think Venom even says something about like hinting that,
You would have been a good
yeah, like,
dad.
yeah, exactly. So I really started to like that family once that happened.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised at, well, the role they ultimately play. I mean, I really didn't expect them to
Me
stick around for the
neither.
climax, right?
Like the moment that happens, it's like, man, this movie, like that's classic Venom charm. Where like there's just these weird people looking at something, and then the movie decides to just make the leap, to just do something so weird. Like the kid finds the hole in the gate, and they're like, "Well, let's go exploring." What is this madness? And then they get in more danger, and they become part of the action, and then they get their own little sequence in the action. Like this is, oh man, I fell in love. I fell in love with the second half of the movie. It's just ever increasing wacky ideas, but in a good way. Not like, oh, he's making tequila, or he's saying he's out of the Eddie closet. Like this is proper wackiness. Like this is just like, what are they on? What is the purpose behind these things? And the purpose is fun.
Yeah,
It's
but
fun.
also I will note the moment that Eddie intersects with them, I think that's the moment when the movie slows down, when the movie
Yes.
starts to have that breathing room again, when suddenly the scenes are able to actually flow into one another. Yeah,
Mm. And he
like
actually has people to bounce off of.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And the interaction helps, but also I loved the calmness, right? The way those scenes were paced, because now it's like, okay, he has time to spare, to rest, to slow down, and really, to ruminate, and things get a bit more character heavy again. And suddenly things become, yeah, it's like you don't have that over the top attempt at comedy anymore. It's more, the comedy becomes way more character focused. And I think
100%.
that, yeah, and I think that was a real strength of the film from that point on. I mean, honestly, I think after the first 30 minutes, that's when the film really gels for me.
Well, no, definitely. I think that this is when you realize that there's a little more somberness. Like just you mentioned it. Like he's you can feel like this is Eddie kind of soaking things in, soaking the trilogy in, and I think it's time for us to do so as well. Um, I loved all of it. And every new scene is like they're they're letting Eddie sort of take stock. Then you're kind of with Tom Hardy taking stock as well. It's a great merging of tones there. And let's see. So I was kind of sad to see him go. Like, man, when he dropped him in Vegas, and he's like, shoes, sandals, and like, thanks, and like, okay, bye. Like, so I had a friend who maybe it was you. I'm not sure. I think I had a friend mutual on Twitter who was saying like they're like um M Night Shyamalan side characters, dropped in, to a Venom movie.
I've never thought of that, but that kind of makes sense.
hmm Um, so I think they really worked. They really worked for me. Um, and then okay, Mrs. Chen. It definitely felt like originally it maybe it must be Michelle Williams and Reed Scott, Dr. Dan. Maybe again, is my guess. Maybe the original set piece and sequence was they get a shotgun wedding in base or something. They decide to stop waiting or some shit, some excuse like that, and then they couldn't get them. So like, who do we get? You know, and I think they got Miss Jen because they realized this is the end of the trilogy. We need to give closure to something that's been around for the last two movies. And I think Mrs. Chen. It's funny. She's like the only actor and character in the I guess like the Spider-Man movies that's been in as many as Tobey Maguire.
Well, it's been
Tobey
she
Maguire, Tom Hardy, and her. Because
yeah, I think she had only 4 appearances though, right? I
yeah, no,
mean,
they've all had 4 appearances. So Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and No Way Home. Tom Hardy,
okay.
Venom 1, 2, and 3, No Way Home. Um, and then her, Mrs. Chen, Venom 1, 2, and 3, and Across Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
4.
Oh, yeah,
Four,
okay, yeah,
the
that
four, the four
yeah.
timers club.
I mean, I was cool with that whole thing. I didn't really I mean, I don't know what they were and what that might have been at some point. I enjoyed it for what it is, and honestly, it's a pretty big coincidence, right? I mean, they just happen to
They don't
speak.
really explain it. Like, okay, is she like winning? Like, she didn't mention like, oh man, I hit the
That
jackpot. So they
that's
gave.
that's the impression I got. I got the impression that she just won somehow a lot of money, right? So that would mean she's probably rich by now, and so she can afford to just help him out. And I think she gives him new clothes or something, or new shoes or whatever it was.
No, no,
I
no.
don't remember.
She doesn't give him anything. They just dance. They just dance. Um, and so the dance itself, I think, is toned and paced a little weird. But I think this is a set piece that people don't really understand. I've seen a lot of discourse about the set piece where he has the titular Last Dance, which I do appreciate that there's been 2 movies in the last couple of years named The Last Dance. Okay, and they have the Last Dance at exactly opposite moments in the film. Okay, Magic
Wait,
Mike's last Magic
hold on. What was the other one?
Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Oh,
Right.
oh, right. I
Right.
haven't. I still need to see that one.
Man, it is. I need to rewatch it because it is. I don't know if it's not cynical about anything other than the fact that it exists. But to what amount of that is sincere, I have no idea. I need to rewatch it. Um, I would call it probably the most cynical Magic Mike movie. Um, anyway, I liked it initially. But yeah, no, it's a fun scene, and I think that a lot of discourse about it, like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It's just there to be funny, and I will agree. A lot of the times, a lot of the comedy in the second and third Venom movies is just there, just like, oh, we're being wacky. But this, while it has tones of that, it I feel like, oh, it's Venom's like last chance to be happy. Okay, and people are like,
Yeah.
oh man, like, doesn't he know he's in danger? Yes, he knows he's in danger, so he sees this chance to kind of do one thing that grabs life by the horns, and he goes for it. I think that really means a lot for the character, and I think that it's a powerful scene, really, in my view, and that perspective, because after that, that's it. Like the rest of the movie is just nothing but him and Eddie fighting for their lives. There's no respite after that. It's literally the last dance. Like it's the last moment that there is any kind of real levity for them. There's humor still at the near the end, but this is like it's nothing but like being on against the wall after that. And I think that it's and that in that way, like they kind of really go out with something big, like a big funny like dance scene. It's the last time we see Venom in a way that can be like that that optimistic, that kind of positive kind of energy. So I think that scene will grow on rewatches for me.
Uh, my impression was that there was a kind of somberness to that scene, because as you watch the movie, it becomes obvious, or at least it became obvious to me, that Venom loves life. Venom, the symbiote, really loves this planet. He enjoys all the experiences that it has to offer. And so, in some way, he, by that point in the movie, is resigned to the fact that he's probably not going to last, and he just wants to enjoy what he can while he can. So, yeah, it might be a completely logical thing for him to do, but emotionally it makes sense. He just wants to have like a real last dance before he is caught or killed, or before death comes for him, essentially. So yeah, for me that worked, and I could, just watching it, I kind of felt, yeah, it's kind of fun, but it's also like the scenes with the camper family and everything, it's also a bit more contemplative.
I mean, in a way, like in bringing back the camera family, I was gonna bring this up later, but as a whole, like this movie is all about like there's not a lot of closure in the film, but the film is about closure. Is about accepting that something's done. Like you mentioned kind of perfectly when they first meet Eddie. They're talking about you know how the father quit his job and what they took in all their savings to make this one last trip together. To see Area 51 be decommissioned, and Area 51 is being decommissioned as a whole. So like that's closing down. They get there and they realize that it's been in disrepair. It's shutting down. Everything's kind of broken, and like he get a little moment like that's sad that this thing that he really kind of made his life is being shuttered, and like in a way this has a better execution of that theme than Deadpool 3, which I think has a very similar theme. We're like, we're closing the Venom, the X-Men universe, the Fox universe is down, and so Deadpool rail against that. We gotta keep it going. We gotta keep it alive in some way, and it's failing. It's a mess. I don't think it does it in a good job because I don't think Ryan Reynolds knows how to fucking work with themes. I don't think he does. And what's his face? Director man doesn't know either. Wow, I forgot
Sean
his name.
Levy?
Sean Levy, yes. Who knows? Who can tell who directed that? A computer did probably. Um, well, this one you get that moment when like they're like seeing Area 51 shuttering down. Like that's the Venom trilogy. Like it's closing down. It's in disrepute. Everyone's kind of leaving, and then you get the third act. You just crashing into the wall. Like no, it's now without a fight. Now without like one last like big showcase. I think that's like as you mentioned, like it's just taking things one more time, like just really trying to go all out with what you can while you're there to enjoy it.
I mean, I kind of agree with that, but also I don't think that there is a real sense that the universe is done for good. I mean,
Oh
the
no, 100%. But I feel like that's talking about the trilogy itself, at least.
yeah, yeah. I think if anything, they managed to create the sense that this is it for now, at least. That okay, Venom is probably not gonna make it, and uh, well, if he's dead, maybe he's not permanently dead, but he's dead for now. And I think they build nicely to that. I definitely find that the last act of the movie is where all the money went because finally it's the action scenes are not rushed. You can actually see what's happening with
Oh man,
both.
this is some of the best action in the fucking trilogy. It's so fun. I know at this point is like the moment they get there 51, and especially when they get to Las Vegas, it's like okay, this is where the money went. This is where things happen. Like at that point, I perked up. Like, okay, now the first half makes sense. Like it's so empty because, like I mentioned, I already knew it was a budget problem. But like, it wasn't just that the entire film would have these issues, these obvious glaring. We gotta empty everything to save as much money. It was like we got empty everything from the first half to put it all in the second. Put everything. Location, extras, like effects, music licenses, and it's amazing. It just feels like a fuller picture at that point.
No, for sure. And I just wish that the film as a whole had a bigger budget because still, even in the final act, I could tell, okay, I think a couple of corners here or there were cut because some of those new symbiotes are on screen for only like, I don't know, 30 seconds or whatever, and they get chopped up and killed and stuff like that. And that's a shame because, my God, like the designs of those characters and they have all of these distinct powers. I was like, wait a minute, the symbiotes can manipulate fire or whatever. That's something new.
You know, let's see here. Just talk about that. The way the xenophages kill things, it got me on edge every time. I don't like it. I don't like it. It just like ugh. Oh, it's just a blender. It doesn't even do it to eat. It just blends them. That's diabolical. Okay.
It is, but it's also cool, and I will say that I liked how they were finally able to work in more blood and gore into things. I mean, it's still PG-13, but it's like, holy crap, the xenophages are way bloodier and way more animalistic than the symbiotes, even, right?
I
I mean,
know,
you
right?
get that set, right?
Ugh.
No, really, right? Like, I just love how they had that whole part where I think it kills like all of General Strickland's men, and it
Yeah,
just like I think it just takes a couple of them and like throws it into its mouth or whatever, and you just see the blood like coming out the back. I'm just like, wow. They,
exactly. And there's one where it only gets like half of the person before spitting it out, and so the guy is like just kind of crawling a little bit or something. He's got no legs. Like,
oh
oh
my
no,
god.
oh no, because his legs not blended. No, terrible, just terrible stuff, man. That got me every time. Like it's like hair raising a little bit. But no, let's talk about the last act. Last act is phenomenal. Okay, Toxin again. I think he is just so cool. He's the coolest character in this fucking movie. I love him. He's like, there's this army of symbiotes. There's an army of our brothers or something like that. Army of symbiotes in the basement. Free them. You know, fight. You know, and then he does a heroic sacrifice. But I love the tone he uses. He's like, even at the end, he's like, he's got this weird mentorish tone. You know, um, I love it. I love it. I love that's a cliche I always adore. Um, and I call them the symbiote Power Rangers, but they're so fun. And it's a shame that that Hasbro has such a fucking MCU bias that they'll make any goddamn third-rate character in a third-rate MCU movie into a figure, but we'll probably never get a full set of symbiote Power Rangers because they're all color coded. So I call them symbiote Power Rangers. It's so great. I love the. It's so fun too because I love the one that like that starts out as two guys and then one of them grabs the other and they become a two-headed beast. It's amazing. Ah,
Yeah, that was cool, and I personally hope that maybe one of those two survive because I don't think we quite see them die. You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, and hopefully not. I really hope not too, because Juno Temple and her electric symbiote survived, so that's good too. So there's still symbiotes out there, and I really hope we see some more as it goes along. Um, let's see, but this is definitely where the money went. It's more humorous. It feels like if we're gonna end, we need to go out on a bang, and this goes out on a bang. It's like everything that you really kind of want in one of these films. And everyone always complains, oh, they're always fighting against other symbiotes, but now you have this like these unstoppable machines, monster machines. You have like trick shots and teamwork and fighting dynamics with symbiotes. They're doing a lot of inventive stuff. Even in the background, it's very creative. It's got a lot of energy. I have to say, applaud to people like Kelly Marcel and Tom Hardy, and as for our first film, I think Kelly Marcel is very confident behind the camera. Honestly, like it's like even though like even with the first half of stuff, like you have to have a real sense of what you want to do to like manage like okay we gotta strip this down like even at first I like it's stripped down to its bare bones, it's empty, it's void, but you've got like this is gonna pay off. This is we gotta make sure this works in order to have that happen. And I think that I hope that it's people have been panned. People are hoping it bombs. I think it's almost made like a 190 million already, so it's not going to bomb. And I hope that her career only goes higher from here, honestly, because I think that this is something that she landed the ship, and then I think that she landed it with a lot of grace. Okay, and that last act is so fucking good. I need to watch it.
I completely agree. I remember seeing the trailer, and just from the trailer, you could tell that, okay, yeah, there's some style there, there's some uh, confidence behind the camera. And really seeing the whole movie, it bears that out. I don't know how I would compare this stylistically to the previous films exactly, but I think it's for what it is, it is well done. I particularly liked the sequence where, they're running from Strickland's men and Venom has to start jumping into all those different animals and stuff. Like, I think that was also very well handled. Um, but just in general, for a first time directorial debut, on a big budget movie like this. Well, yeah, that's actually like, I mean, it's commendable.
Yes, yes, that's the great word for it. Um, but I gotta say, I um, I teared up, I did a little bit because, you know, they try really hard. I think that Venom knows what's going to happen. I think that as I mentioned, I think he knows and accepts that, like, he's gonna die. That's what he's dancing, and he knows that dancing will attract the attention. I think he's accepted it. He's gonna die. He wants to take in as much as he can, and so a lot of that, especially in that in lens, is just him trying to stall for time as much as he can, trying to make sure, trying to be like the one, the that they all focused on him, that all the center pages are focused on him, all that. I think, and it's a little bit heartbreaking that Eddie didn't realize that either. Like the Venom was just doing that. Like there's only one way this ends, and I do admire that the movie has the kind of like the temerity and the tone to like really sell just that hopelessness. It's optimistic in its way, but it's also kind of like this is a no-win situation, you know. And I like that they set it up too. Like you kind of I didn't know. I thought maybe there would be like some there is some kind of bullshit way that that they find a way at the end post credit scene. We'll get to that later. Um, but they set up a no situation, and they're like, they're probably gonna find a bullshit way to get out of this, but they don't really. They don't. It's only one way it could end, and they stick to that. And it's heartbreaking a little bit. So it ends up with, you go ahead. I don't know. It's great. I liked it. I like that they stuck to their guns for that
I
ending.
really liked how the final sequence created the sense of escalating danger
Hmm.
because there's that one shot where I think they're hiding in the ruins of a truck or a helicopter, and all of these xenophages are just surrounding them. I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, they're
They're
really like,
screwed.
yeah, they're really overwhelmed now. All the other symbiotes are gone basically, and now it's just I mean, how the hell are they gonna get out of this? How are they gonna um handle all of this? And honestly, I felt it was a little, it was a little weird how he could just envelop all four of them like
Right? Yeah. I mean, come on. But and
that.
I accepted it because
Yeah.
he's going out, and let's give him one big moment to go out.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, he should have done. If he'd been able to do that before, he would have done it before. Okay,
yeah, I mean, really, like, it's just it's a little weird how,
convenient.
yeah, it's convenient, and also, honestly, I'm just thinking, man, it's weird how Venom has, like, the least powers of all the other symbiotes, but he can still pull stuff like this, you know? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, I mean, like, because like everybody else, like how they have like, they can do all these blades and special, like things like, right. One of them can like do fire, one of them is rock or whatever.
yeah,
And Venom is just very basic, but also he can like spread himself out way more than anybody else. Or whatever. So, and I kind of and I wish and look, maybe I missed it, but did they actually establish how he knew that that whole place was like an acid bath kind of like that was an acid shower thing or whatever? Because I don't think they quite established that.
no, they don't establish why or how he knew that. Maybe he got the memories from Clark.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. I just wish they kind of
Explain that.
yeah, actually explain that. Yeah, because they clearly set up the idea of this acid thing being used, right? They show them melting a car or whatever.
Yeah,
But so I figured, okay, that's probably going to come back at some point, maybe in the climax. So so that was pretty cool. But I'm just like, wait, but how did he know how to use that or whatever? But anyway, it's okay. Um, I think they sell those final moments really well. I actually kind of felt sorry for General Strickland because that guy was just, I was like, wow, they're really cruel to him. I mean,
yeah.
he's like, I mean, he keeps like getting, he's wounded and he keeps getting hit by acid and stuff. That's just what.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think that the way he goes out can be interpreted two ways. One, he just sees down with this shit, or two, he realizes that if Venom is the only thing that can prop him up. So by using the grenade, he can just let it all loose at once. He can't stand up on his own, so Venom can't hold him up anymore either. So he just, but he could also be just done with this shit. Like, ah, man, I'm just in too much fucking pain here. Um, I was kind of hoping that we would see, what he calls a neuropia, something like that. I was kind of hoping we would see something like that.
Wait,
I thought,
Neuropia? What's that?
remember, like, Ray Simmons' character says it's the transcendental moment before you die, where you see something,
Oh,
and
right.
and he has like the diagram, which is clearly Venom and him and like the other symbiotes. They're all color coded. Like this little diagram like of like stars that are like it's like the monster thing and like a guy touching fingertips, and then like behind them are like color coded stars that are the colors of the symbiotes. I thought something would happen, something visual, but I don't know. I was kind of hoping something would happen, but it didn't.
I thought that was more thematic, but it's interesting to wonder if maybe there was like a slightly bigger deal with that. That's really yeah, and now that I think about it, yeah, I'm just interesting because yeah, they really brought up and focused on that whole thing, but then it didn't quite come back.
He says it at the end before he passes out. So maybe he saw something.
Mm,
Maybe if he looked at the stars, maybe there was planned a cheesy moment where he sees like stars twinkle with the colors of the symbiotes,
mm,
something like that. He's looking at the stars. Um, so maybe something like that. Um,
hmm.
but I really like that. I love that line where it's like, I thought we were gonna be the lethal protector, and he says, um, that we are. This is what that is. I love that line because it was like it was like Joker 2 to me, really, where like you take the idea of these characters becoming their iconic versions and then just kind of extrapolating some sort of deeper character moment about that. And the Joker is about like this cycle of violence, and here it's like, how much would you give, you know, to protect someone, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen Joker too, but yeah, but I definitely feel that the idea here, the idea of Venom 3, of all those final moments, yeah, that was quite clear. And
Mm.
yeah, they really go for the feel. Like
Yeah.
they really go sincere with it, and I appreciated that.
Mm.
So
And
shall we talk about maybe the new secondary characters here?
the hippies again.
No, I mean like all the Imperium people like
Oh, the Imperium. Who the fuck are they? And will they show up again? Are they gonna be like the Nick Fury of whatever becomes of the Null saga? What's gonna happen? Who are they? Will they show up? Will they never show up again? Oh my god.
I mean, Strickland is probably gone for good, which
Yeah.
is kind of a it's a shame because he was really the best developed character of that group. Like he has a very clear arc,
Mm,
like you can just see that arc progressing through the movie. And I was kind of sad when they killed him off because he was easily the best character in that
mm,
whole ensemble because I still like I do not get either Juno Temple's character or Clark Bach's character. Like I get what they're doing, but I don't get why they're doing it. Uh, I suspect with Temple, especially her, I have this feeling that the idea with her might have been that she maybe had some sort of I don't know, disorder or whatever. Maybe she was on the spectrum, but she really did not relate well to humans. And so she related better to aliens. And maybe her arc was supposed to be her realizing the value of human life or whatever and becoming better towards people.
mm,
Maybe that's why the movie ends with her actually trying to save a friend because, earlier they had that whole moment where Strickland's men are gone,
mhm.
right? And she's just, oh wait, did the alien leave any samples or whatever? And Strickland is just like, my men are dead. What the hell is wrong with you? And
Right.
yeah, so I'm just kind of wondering, maybe that was her deal. Like she was just supposed to become more human. Ironically, maybe by also taking on a symbiote or whatever.
No, I can like see that. I can also see like again, like she hasn't moved on from living a life for her brother. Like she's not really living her own life. She's living a life for her brother. So by
Mm,
becoming bonded with the symbiote, she's able to kind of express outwardly like herself. Like this, like symbiotes always like especially with Venom and all those, like they're tied with you. They are expressing, they become tethered and expressions basically of your personality, and that you see with her, it kind of tethers itself like electricity, like that's her whole thing. At the end, I think that I don't know, was it trying to imply that her scar had healed, that it had healed her scar?
Maybe I
If
didn't
she
quite.
looks at
I
her
couldn't quite.
hand
Yeah,
weirdly.
I couldn't quite make it out. Is the thing.
I'll need to check to see if the scar extended to like her palms or her wrists or something like that. Because she's kind of looks at it weird, like she like opens her hands up and down. I was wondering if maybe the scar had healed, because that's to me that's what it kind of felt like. Like she's putting so much effort and putting so much focus on the Area 51 alien stuff because she feels like she owes it to
Mm,
to her brother, and so she's not really letting herself like express herself, and so the symbiote gives her that ability, that chance. It's a
okay.
clean slate, basically.
Yeah, maybe that's interesting. I'm still like confused though about that whole vial and everything. I'm like, wait a minute, was there another symbiote that was purplish with some lightning in it, or where did that whole thing come from? Or was that like a modified version of the Venom sample that they collected
No,
earlier?
definitely
Or
not. At least maybe originally. Um, so so let's talk about my theory here. Let's just jump in. So Venom is dead. He dies. He's protecting Eddie, and Eddie survives. Um, and it's very sad. And I think my most heartbreaking things in the comic book movie, at least recently, where Eddie wakes up and he's like still has like all of his scars and stuff, and he still has like wounds. But I think it's really funny, in a sad way, really, where like he's got all these scars. This is maybe the first time where he can't heal, and Venom used to heal him. So like he's like, this is something where he's gonna have to take it day by day now. Like stuff he's taking for granted in the beginning, where he's like, oh man, I died, to like, oh, I have like still have like these cuts and bruises, and I'm still bleeding places. I think that's really sad. And he goes sometime later to New York, and we get he's like, I'm living for both of us. This is for you, which again is like, I think it was in maybe the character, maybe the original idea for the character was like to parallel, you know, Juno Temple's character. Like they're living for someone else. Like he's like doing it for Venom. He's going to see Statue of Liberty for him, that kind of thing. And then let's talk about the second post-credit scene, because I think that's really causing some confusion. I think what it is now makes sense, where you see like the bartender from the No Way Home bar, the Sonyverse version. He got taken by the Imperium Project at the beginning of the film, and you don't ever see him again. And then it turns out they just kind of left him behind when the 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 base just got destroyed, and he wanders out, and then we see a broken vial, um, you know, next to a cockroach. When earlier they make a very pointed reference to the fact that cockroaches can survive any force of destruction, and people have said that they've seen the cockroach as having like black and white highlights. I didn't see that. I saw.
I didn't either. I read somebody, I think somebody discussed the post-credit scene in an article and just said that the cockroach got into the symbiote. I'm like, what the hell are you talking
No,
about? That's
definitely. It just looked like a regular brown cockroach, um, but I think that it's definitely again meant to call back to that earlier mention that cockroaches can survive anything. So people have said like, oh well, it's just like people I've heard some weird things like, oh, it's just a broken vial, just symbolize that Venom's dead, or it's a broken vial, but Venom is bonded to the cockroach, or it's a broken vial and the piece of Venom has bonded to the bartender. So shit like that, and like, this is so weird. But no, I think it's definitely meant to just be vague and evocative. Like the broken vial, we do notice at the beginning that there was a piece of Venom spawn left behind after the bar, right? In the very first scene of the movie. And that we never see again. They have it, they bring it somewhere, but it's not really. You don't see it in the final battle. And I thought I brought this up to you before that my theory was that in probably original cut or originally early on to filming, the vial that Juno Temple has that has the purple electric symbiote was the Venom spawn from the beginning. Okay, and that kind of fits more in line with um Venom 2, where kind of Venom just kind of leaves Bud's places. Like he left bud with Carnage when Carnage bit him, when he also bit him, and then a bud somewhere got into Pat Milligan at the end. Pat Milligan at the end of the movie, end of Carnage. So that kind of says, okay, that makes sense. But maybe like in the original cut, you see, or original script or whatever, all the symbiote Power Rangers are like Venom spawn that he's been leaving behind places. Everywhere he visits, maybe he's not knowing it, he leaves Venom spawn, and maybe like that was the original thing that Noah was after. Maybe Venom could create life, you know, and maybe that's like the thing. Like he has the special ability where he just kind of leaves. He can reproduce, something like that. Or and that the and then later on they decided to change it to like where the Venom spawn came on a meteorite, because that's a very quick scene that could easily be like a pickup or like a reshoot where they mention like even ADR, because like, oh, but you remember when we saw all these other Venom symbiotes that came to Earth on a meteorite, and it's like a 5-second thing where they show a shot of like a meteor and like some very indistinct, shadowy, but still colorful symbiotes just scurrying around the grass, and like he's like,
I thought that was actually some repurposed footage from the first movie and just new details that like okay the way that the original symbiotes I mean okay I know now that okay that was a ship, it was not a meteorite,
mm,
but at the time I saw it I thought, oh okay, yeah, I guess they're harkening back to that original crash, and just more symbiotes got out of it than we knew about. So they were all part of the same crew. That was my impression. And now I'm like, oh, okay, it was a completely different thing. So I guess it arrived maybe later or whatever.
yes, exactly. Um, and so yeah, that could also be the case as well. And yeah, I feel like maybe the original plan was that the one that Temple ends up with is the Venom spawn, and then later on they're like, well, we kind of want to keep this as singular as possible, so they change it so where the Venom spawn is something completely different and maybe even disappeared, just to give Venom an out. Okay. Then maybe this was really at some point they're like, what if we don't make another? What if Tom Hardy doesn't want to come back? What if maybe things are always in flux, and maybe like okay, they didn't want to leave that closed off, because then if you have the Venom spawn, the last one be like the one that Juno Temple has, then Venom really can't come back. But if you kind of re-edit a couple of things, remove a scene here, maybe explaining something or two, you can have it so like Juno Temple just so happens to have one that was pink, that was just lying around. That could happen. You don't know where it came from. And then you could have the post credit scene that shows like, oh, but here's the barman, and you see the broken vial, like, oh, so that must be the bar. That must be the vial from the bar that had the black Venom spawn in it. You know?
Yeah, I really like your take on it. I also think it makes a lot of sense, and that the scene itself is ambiguous enough to go in different directions. They can go whichever way they choose. They can say, okay, we're not setting up anything explicitly, but the door is open. My personal take on it when I saw that was that wherever that vial came from, it was more like for me it was more of a metaphor. Venom is
Yeah,
like a
it felt
cockroach.
enigmatic. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but like I literally thought, okay, symbiotes are like cockroaches. Venom is like a cockroach. He will survive, or he survived in some way or fashion or whatever.
Yeah, but I feel like just having a Venom spawn that's like Venom, like it's a neat way of if they want to bring Venom back without having another like, oh, the Codex again kind of plot. It's a good way to bypass that, because that way you can have like a Venom Junior, it's like a Baby Groot situation where it's meant to be Venom again, but it's like a junior, Baby Groot kind of thing. Because they know that James Gunn be like, Baby Groot is not Groot, it's Groot, it's Groot's son, it's Groot's offspring, you know.
I honestly can't tell the difference.
I know I can't tell the difference here, but that's what James Gunn has said. That's what James Gunn's like. No, that's not really Groot. Groot died. So I feel like that's a good way to keep this one, the ending of this one, as concrete as possible, which I think is a great. I think that's a great creative stance. Like this is just the end. That Venom did die, and we're not taking that back. If something pops up again, that's like a Baby Groot situation where it's like it's kind of like Venom again, but it's not. And this you can take this as it is, and I do appreciate that they made that stance. I did do. Um, and so, as a whole set of movies, as a trilogy, you don't really see something that closes itself as much as this one does. So I do appreciate it. I really do. Um, and let's talk about the other post-credit scene. That's no like, aha, I'll be back, like Skeletor style from the.
I mean, I guess yeah, he really broke the fourth wall, right?
Yeah, what?
I guess maybe he was even talking to the audience in
Yeah,
that
he was.
first scene. I'm not sure.
Maybe. It's ridiculous. But it's funny. At the beginning, before this movie came out, everyone was like, I saw a lot of discourse like, "Oh man, I really hope Spider-Man 4 isn't the sequel to Lemon and the Last Dance." And I was like, I really hope it's not too. Because I don't want to see them cross over. But now after this movie, everyone's like, thankfully, Venom. I'm sorry, thankfully, Spider-Man 4 is probably not going to be a sequel to Venom: and the Last Dance. I'm like, but it should be because I want to see what happens to Eddie next. you know
Mm.
it's sad, that's even if like a version or spawn of Venom is out somewhere. I kind of want to see them hook up again, link up.
No, so do I. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I think it's more or less inevitable that they'll come back. I mean, usually when you have a movie that they call the last one, the final chapter or whatever, well, it's
Mm.
never really the last one or the final chapter. Like people will say around the press time, yeah, we're never going to do another one. This is it, blah blah blah. And then a few years later, it's like, yeah, we changed our minds, you know? So I'm just like, okay, come on. There's like you are not going to um permanently take out the anchor of the Venomverse. I mean, it is for all call it the Spider, Sony, blah blah blah, whatever. Right? It's the Venomverse,
No,
and you can't
100%.
have a Venomverse without Venom.
No, I definitely agree. So whatever happens next, Sinister Six or whatever happens in Craven, if anything happens in Craven, maybe they got rid of everything from Craven that connected to anything, or Spider-Man 4. Um, these special series of movies to me, ups and downs, flaws and all, I do appreciate them.
Uh,
And
yeah, yeah, but can we maybe just talk a bit more about that potential future and
no,
stuff?
sure. Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. It'd be really funny if the ending of if the post-credit scene for Craven the Hunter is like just a smorgasbord of Sonyverse fan wink. Okay, like Craven, it's me, Sydney Sweeney, Madam Web. I brought Morbius and Vulture with me. They couldn't get Dakota Johnson back, so it's clearly Sydney Sweeney. TV game, I can tell. He has one.
Maybe. I legitimately hope that they can at least do, one big crossover movie because they've been trying to do Sinister Six, but not really, villainous Sinister Six for a while now, right?
Yeah.
And uh, honestly, I keep remembering how people I think we're talking about all of the Sony stuff over the years and how oh they're gonna build them into villains for Spider-Man or something or I think there was this maybe perception that well they're gonna have to do a Spider-Man movie eventually with all of these guys because they're like the villains, they're the Sinister Six, and I'm like no wait a minute they're not, that doesn't make any sense because that's not really how they're depicting them. They're kind of depicting all of these characters as anti-heroes or dark superheroes or whatever. I mean, they're not going to be they're not evil. Even the Vulture in the post-credit scene of Morbius is not evil, you know?
Mm.
Like so if they do manage to pull that off and Null is the big villain and that seems to be clearly the implication, well then they're going to be the good guys. They're going to be fighting an uber bad guy who apparently wants to destroy the world. And I think by that point I don't even think Spider-Man will be part of the equation because with Holland, I'm as far as I remember, they when they brought him back, he was also contracted to do another Marvel movie after No Way Home.
Hmm.
So he's going to remain tied to that continuity, and the Venomverse still doesn't have it hasn't really made up its mind about like is there a Spider-Man anyway, right? Like they
Mm.
keep kind of dancing around all of that. So who knows? Like there might not be a Spider-Man in the Sinister Six film.
And I wouldn't mind at all because honestly, people are like, "Well, you really want Vulture to fight Null? What about the Avengers?" No, the thing is, it'd be really cool if Vulture fought Null because that's why you have people like Black Canary and Green Arrow on the Justice League. Okay, because it's really cool when street level heroes or street level, like kind of low level, low power kind of people fight insane, massive universe threats. It's really cool when Green Arrow shoots a fucking like arrow at like a galactic conqueror because that's great. That's what things are made of. That's what comic books are made of. So yeah, no, it'd be really cool to see like Vulture like fight one of those Innovages or some shit. It'd be cool. I want to see that. That's the entire thing I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see that as well. I want to see them actually. I mean, the quality of the post credit scenes has been up and down, right? But
Mm,
yeah, it is tempting to know where is this all going. Can they weave all of these characters together into a larger whole? I would like to see Venom interact with Morbius, and maybe have a symbiote fight a vampire
mhm.
for like a scene or two. That could be kind of cool, right? I mean, they're both virtually immortal. They could like impale each other a bunch of
And
times.
bat sonar thing too. Maybe that could hurt him.
Oh, yeah,
Frequencies.
I haven't thought of that. Yeah, but that would be cool, right? I
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, the possibilities are there. So, honestly, I don't know, I keep remembering, like, who made up that bullshit about Vulture saying he wants to fight Spider-Man? I mean, I keep
Everyone was fucking saying that. Everyone was saying that. It's insane.
yeah, it is. I mean, I suspect maybe there was, like, one key outlet that did that, and then
No,
just everybody else picked
I
that
was
up.
I was hearing that from all places. I think that everyone just took it the worst way possible. I think that people who like really don't want to give these movies like a fair go, they just kind of like went to like the stupidest possible scenario to be like, aha, see, stupid movie, and they all came up with the same thing.
Yeah, but which is like I'm like, wait, you can't imagine. He never says that. You can't. You think that's what he meant? Like he
Exactly
could
right.
not have meant anything else. Is that because he's a Spider-Man villain or whatever? But what are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, look. I honestly I want to see Morbius on the screen again. I'm a fan of Morbius.
yeah,
I'm
just
I'm a
recast
fan
him
of
with Matt Smith because Matt Smith should have been Morbius. Let's be honest.
really.
I thought he was. Yeah, he should have been Morbius. He could pull off a great Morbius.
I don't know. I like what they did with Morbius. I think that movie is just underrated. I think
Oh,
the
it's definitely
characters,
underrated.
yeah,
It's definitely underrated.
it's I do wish though Sony would just maybe figure some things out behind the scenes, stabilize them, and stop changing around their movies in post production because that's creating more problems than it's solving, if you
Mm-hmm.
ask me.
100%.
Yeah. So what are your expectations for Craven?
Well, honestly, I just want to see Chameleon it up for at least two scenes. Okay, I know he's in the movie, but I worry that they're not going to have him do any Chameleon shenanigans until like the very last couple. Like, oh, he was like the side character the entire time, and that was it. I want to see him like I want to see some full on Meister of Disguise type bullshit. Okay, I want
Mm.
these two reveals. Okay, and then 10 out of 10. Everything else I don't care about. I'm missing it for a Chameleon, baby.
I actually didn't know he was in the movie. I
Oh,
thought it
really?
was only Rhino or something.
No,
Rhino and
Chameleon.
like
Chameleon's a movie, which I like that actually. That there's like Chameleon, there's Rhino. It's like animals. You got the animal characters in the film.
yeah, which makes sense, right? I mean, Craven is a hunter.
So you
I
get the
guess
animal based one. Maybe it's
yeah.
like, oh, maybe the post credits will be like, there's a vulture somewhere, and they just pull out, and like I guess it's time for me to go hunting
uh
for wild game.
that would be fun. I'm hoping that honestly I find it weird that Craven is the first R-rated movie in the Venomverse because I think the R
Such
rating
such a scam, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, go ahead. I know what you're gonna say.
No, but really, they've done like three Venom films, and Venom is literally an alien who bites people's heads off. And you can imagine a whole. a whole bunch of gore and actual dismemberment happening on screen, and Morbius is a vampire who drinks blood. Like, but you make all of these movies PG-13, and then Craven is the guy that you're going to give the R rating to. I mean, you, but really, I hope that it works and that it makes enough money for them to maybe award the R rating to other movies that happen later, if they
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But yeah, no, I hear it's good. I just really hope on Real Talk, I only hope for like one or two things, okay? I hope that that it's not edited like hell, that
Yes.
interesting happens at an even pace, okay? And that it just tells the story it wants to tell. Okay, that's a complete story that is not bogged down by a lot of bullshit. Maybe the post credit scene can be bullshit. I wouldn't mind if like the entire movie was like really solid and then the post credit scene is just nonsense. Because that fun nonsense. I mean, like I can really imagine like someone going like there's talks about like a giant bat and a giant vulture somewhere. He's like, guess I gotta go hunting. I can imagine. It's so clear in my mind, like Sony type bullshit that
Mm.
I would love it. I would love it. Okay. But yeah, I whatever happens to the Venomverse, the main kind of Venom story was told from start to finish. The other, if it fizzles out, then that's a shame. But you know, as a set of films, it's a nice thing. I'll return to. Madam Web has a lot of good qualities. I'm gonna rewatch it tonight. I just keep thinking about the toxic scene, and like I gotta rewatch. I love everything when it comes to how that movie is shot and filmed and stuff. Um, and I want to watch Morbius, and these are movies I want to go back to. They're nice, they're fun, they're simple, they're quick. They're comic movies. But they're what general comic movies should be. Okay, and I know we mentioned that the movie that we both wish that Venom had a larger budget, and that would have been great. But think about it, it's like almost close to breaking completely even. You know, if it had a larger budget, it wouldn't be that close to completely breaking even, and then it would be maybe even potentially a flop, and that would be a shame in the long run.
No, I agree with that. I think Sony is I don't agree with all of their reshooting, re-editing practices, but I think it's cool that they are trying to keep things under, the 200 plus $1 million level so that their films don't have a as high of a ceiling to clear um in order to make bank.
No,
And
definitely.
and yeah, and even if some of them flop that way, they can still say, "Okay, it wasn't that big of a flop that it's going to monumentally derail everything." Yeah, I think, definitely DC has been struggling with that because when you give 200, 300 million dollars, you put them all into this one big crossover film, and that film doesn't do well, and it's like it really uh, it can really derail a lot of other movies. And here I feel okay, um, they're setting up smaller or lower expectations, right? And so, okay, Madam Web might not have succeeded at the box office, but even if it's a flop, it's not that big of a deal that it's a flop. Also, I like Madam Web. I know it has that. I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny, unintentionally
It's
hilarious
it's
at
it's
times, but
ridiculous. I like it a lot too. It's such a fun time. The other thing, right? These are so small scale. They're so like people are like, oh, these movies are just pointless movies, but like they're genre films. They're not meant to be like important. They're like B films. And they're nice. They're disposable. You don't want to be like, oh man, these is such an important film. Like they try to make Eternals an important Academy worthy film. Look how fucking that worked out. Okay, I like Eternals, but they didn't need to try that hard for a premise that's like ancient aliens helped us build the pyramids. Okay, let's be honest.
well, I I don't know. I mean the some of my issues with the third act aside, I
I don't know, I love the
really like the
Eternals. I
Turtles.
love
I
the
mean,
Eternals, but I'm saying like the way it tries to present itself, the way the fans of it that are not me. I love Eternals. I love Eternals. I think it's fantastic. One of my fucking top 10, top five maybe MCU movies. But like, there's
really?
like, oh,
Wow.
but it's important. It's such an epic. Like, I like it a
No,
lot, but like sometimes these things can be disposable, and that's fine as long as you enjoy them for what they are. I saw this
no,
tweet, that was like, Carnage is the best one because it knows the type of movie it is. All these movies know what the type of movie they are. Okay, they're
yeah,
they're
they
they're light,
absolutely do.
fun, airy, quick, and everyone in them is having a good time. Okay.
Yeah, they're not trying to be event films with world-ending stakes all the time.
Mhm.
I feel that's one of the problems with the MCU is that almost every new MCU film that comes out has to try to be a movie with world-ending stakes, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that, of course, becomes difficult to maintain after a while. I mean, it just becomes ridiculous. I think I read an article by Drew McQueenie, and he once pointed out that, and I don't remember the context, but he pointed out that there have been something like 6 or 7 events in the MCU so far that should have upended the foundations of civilization. And and really, so when you think about it, the world that's depicted in the MCU, I mean, it's been through so many like almost apocalypses that man, it's like how do people go on living after all of that? But but it's not supposed to be realistic. But I'm just saying, okay, yeah, that's a good point in the sense that they almost end the world so much that it just starts to lose its power after a while.
Oh no, definitely. I like that this again was still small scale, but it had the correct tone of apocalyptic, both for not just for the world, but like this is the end of their relationship, of their dynamic. It felt like the end of the road.
Yeah, it
You know?
did. It felt climactic. It
Yeah.
felt like there was a sense, at least, of closure for a little while, anyway. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I have no doubt that they're going to bring Venom back to life. That they'll bring Hardy back in. They'll probably pay him a,
Well,
they'll
you
probably
know what?
send like a dump
Again,
truck full of money
yeah,
or whatever.
100% that'll happen if these movies are successful. So come on, Craven, pull your weight. You know,
Yeah.
we don't get that continuation unless if Craven flops or something. Okay, so
Yeah, I mean, whatever they do with Spider-Man in regard to this thing, I don't know. I think these films can work without Spider-Man. They have worked and they do work. I don't think they necessarily need Spider-Man unless maybe Sony really feels like, okay, we need the box office gross to be high on the crossover movie, so we need to bring a Spider-Man into it to,
Madam Web
um,
2, let's do it.
yeah.
15 years later, perfect
uh,
age.
Yeah, with Aubrey Plaza as the new Madam Web.
No, no, no. Let's be honest. Like, I wasn't like, weren't they like playing 15-year-olds? Like, so you could just have Sydney Sweeney as she is now, and just like not wear her Daria glasses and not speak like this all the
No, no,
time.
I know, but I mean, I would like for the actual titular Madam Web character to be recast because I think Aubrey Plaza would be a much cooler Madam Web. I'm just
Yeah,
putting
no,
that out there.
100%. I think we said that before the other day too. Like you need that kind of type when we did our review of it. Like you need that kind of type to pull up that kind of dialogue. It's just very dry. You lots of dry humor in that movie that is undersold by Dakota Johnson's performance. Like
Yeah,
Madam Web is genuinely funny as a character, but you have like Dakota Johnson just like bumbling her way through the dialogue. Yes, you need an Opera Plaza type.
yeah, yeah. Well, all right. So
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
we're
know. Yeah, I think we're good, right?
yeah, we're doing good here. Um, anyway, yeah, no, Venom: The Last Dance. I think this is a movie that will just grow with time for me. I definitely want to rewatch it again when it comes out on VOD, because I feel like now with some time between when I first watched it, now I've been able to reflect on what it was going for. I went in as blind as I could, honestly, um, and I think that helped me in some ways, but also like that first half, if I knew what it was trying to do at the end, all these payoffs and all that kind of stuff, I wonder how that would color things. So I'm definitely gonna try to watch it as soon as possible. How about you?
I might try to rewatch it because honestly, it's easier to follow uh, on video for me. I always turn on the subtitles or the captions or whatever, so I can just follow the information better because there were definitely things that I missed the first time around. I'm still hoping that in a few years we will start getting director's cuts
Oh
of the
yeah.
Venom trilogy. I really sincerely hope that happens. Like, 2028 or whatever, and R-rated director's cut of Venom, for the 10th anniversary.
Hmm.
Yeah. And definitely one for Carnage later because that movie of all of them, it really needs a longer cut.
Oh no, definitely. I can't see any reason why I wouldn't have a longer cut somewhere because like oh Jesus man, they even cut out the motivation. But I'll have to double dip when that happens because the moment that a trilogy box set is released, I'm buying the hell out of it.
Oh. Yeah, well, hopefully they'll have some new bonuses for it or
Oh,
whatever, like
100%. Now they'll just reuse this or some shit. Um, but like, if as long as it looks cool, like the box art or something looks cool, I'll buy it. I haven't bought like the really skimpy trilogy slipcase for um the Unbreakable trilogy because like it just looks like so lame. It looks like the bargain bin kind of cover art.
Yeah, and I keep waiting for them to do like a long documentary on the Unbreakable films, which still hasn't happened, and that's sad to me. Anyway, I think that's
I can't believe.
something they.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, no, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, I'm just saying, yeah, I feel somebody somewhere should make a long feature-length documentary on the Unbreakable trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Going through them from inception to post-production, maybe delve into some stories like I don't know what happened with Bruce, during the making of the third one, all that stuff. But just we don't have we need a box set with like the 3 hour behind the scenes doc in it. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I definitely agree. Um, and with all these new 4K special edition releases um, being made of like some of the films right now, nice films. Hopefully we get that soon. Something special to actually put on those discs.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So why don't we do the rankings now?
Okay, so um, whole Venomverse or just a trilogy?
Let's just do the trilogy for now.
All right, so Venom 100% top spot. Solid, solid film, solid genre film, great genre film, I'll say, and just a decent movie overall. Second spot, now talking through it, I'm gonna put The Last Dance second spot solid.
Yes.
Again, yeah, because you know what, talking through it, I was able to think about the themes a lot more, and I kind of think that on a rewatch, the themes will come through from the first half a little bit better, of knowing what they're going to be going for in the second half. Um, so I'm hedging it on that. Okay, before I rewatch, I'm hedging it on that. And then Carnage, which I still like. I think I like it a lot more than you do. I think the
Mm.
third. I think all these are fine. Is that Carnage is really messy. I think that it's messy in ways that does still cut around the stuff that's good, fun scenes, entertaining set pieces, entertaining character moments. But it's just the messiest out of all of them.
Yeah, my rankings are pretty much the same. Yeah, I definitely think The Last Dance is number two. I think the first movie is almost great. Uh, Maybe with a bit more I think maybe with an R rating and a slightly longer runtime, it might be a true masterpiece. I don't think it's quite there yet, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen in the future. And yeah, and Carnage is I mean, look, I want to like Carnage. I just can't. I just can't get over just how distracting the editing is. So yeah, ultimately for me, that's number three.
No, I definitely 100% agree. I think that like these are so obviously what they are that it's easier to rank them than sometimes other ones are because you can just tell where the faults lie.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely Carnage is not the best one. I completely disagree with that
Assumption,
perception. Yeah.
perception that like, how is that fan
Yes.
favorite? How?
Mm. All right. Well, look, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope to talk more Sonyverse or Venomverse when Craven comes out.
Yeah, man, let's do good. Can't wait for Craven to come out. Hopefully, I'm trying to get some more people on here, but everyone's busy, holidays and everything, and work. Um, so hopefully we get a bigger roundtable because I think it's fun to just discuss this ridiculous universe as a group. Something a little more communal. So yeah, Craven, I can't wait. That's December, right? December.
I think so.
I remember when it was supposed to come out like in August or something or
I
October.
I remember they pushed it back more than once for I don't know some reason. Maybe they did like more. Who knows? Maybe they did like more tinkering in post production or whatnot.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And let's see here. Mind letting everyone know where they can find you?
Sure. I write a I you can find me on my Twitter account at MLS532, and I have a newsletter which is textualvariations.substack.com, where I write about movies and especially why movies change. And if you are a fan of the Sonyverse, well, I'm hoping to finally finish some stuff about Morbius and publish it later this month. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, and that's great. And you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And yeah, on the channel where we do these kind of discussions whenever we can. And thank you for listening and hope you have a great time. See you soon.
Bye.